Okay, the next one we're going to study, or the next type of industry, is going to be a monopoly. So with a monopoly, remember a monopoly is just one producer. So basically for a monopoly, the monopolist ends up facing the market demand curve. So on this axis we have quantity and price. We have the supply of cupcakes and we have the demand for cupcakes. And what's going to matter to a monopolist is what is the demand curve and our marginal revenue curve. Now, previously when we studied perfect competition, we showed that the demand curve was the marginal revenue curve. That's not necessarily the same thing for monopolist. So what ends up happening, and you have to derive this, you will find out that the marginal revenue curve is going to sit below the demand curve. All right, please be able to notice that on a diagram. And then you have what we would say here, this is basically the supply curve, is the marginal cost curve for monopolist. All right? And as you can see, because they're both upward sloping, and it's usually the marginal cost curve is the supply curve. And if I throw in my cost curves trying to figure out, let's say I've got my marginal cost, and I throw in my average, this would be my total cost, because it sits above my average fix. Again, we want to find the profit maximizing rule, which is where our marginal cost equals our marginal revenue. All right? Where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, that will tell us the output for the monopolist. And so let's say in this example, the output happens to be 40. Now, the monopolist cannot charge as much as it wants to. The reason being is because it still faces a downward sloping demand, which means that no one is going to pay, let's say, for example, the price up here happened to be $20 for a cupcake. All right, so it still is going to be able to be what we call a price taker. This is true for a monopolistic competitive firm as well as for an oligopoly. So in order to figure out where they're going to charge the price, you're going to go up to the demand curve. All right, and you want to figure out what's the price here. And so let's say that the price happens to be $7. All right, at a price of 7. So a monopolist is going to choose output that is going to be lower. A monopolist is going to charge a price that is higher than what we found in perfect competition, and the output is going to be lower. All right, so the monopoly here, if I wanted to figure out what their average total cost was, let's say average total cost is somewhere about $3. All right, so what I can find out here is what is their total revenue, and their total revenue is going to be the price times quantity. So this whole area here is total revenue. And then if I wanted to figure out their total cost, just figure out at 40, what's the total cost? This area here is going to be the cost, which basically makes the area above that, this area here will be the profit for the monopolist. Right? So a monopoly is the only one of the firms that we're going to study that can actually earn a positive economic profit in the long run. And that's simply because in the perfectly competitive market, they were price takers. And so the competition, as more and more firms enter the market, then they're going to drive down the demand for your specific good. And the price will get lower and lower. And so only the firms that have low cost curves are going to stay in the business. For a monopoly, it's not like that. One of the things that makes it a monopoly is they are the only person because of certain reasons. It could either be due to legal barriers, it could be because they have access to a specific patent or drug, the legal barriers, or they could have access to a specific view, or it could be what we call the economies of scale, which just means that it has a high input cost. For example, like a train line. You're not going to find a lot of companies that are going to want to invest in high fixed cost in order to get into this business. So for some reason, a monopoly will be the only firm here. And because there are very difficult barriers to entry, they're able to make what we call an economic profit in the long run.